Good afternoon, everybody. The Arts Council for Monterey County welcomes you to our monthly online segment, Artist Spotlight. And I am Karen Lee Garcia, Programs Director. And today I am so pleased to welcome local designer and master gyrotonic and Galileo teacher trainer, Domini Anne. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be
Yes.
here.
So Domini Anne grew up in Canada, sewing and practicing ballet. And after a brief career as a professional ballet dancer, she became a certified Pilates and yoga instructor in the 90s, and then fell in love with the gyrotonic expansion system and eventually became a specialized master trainer. In 2016, she began incorporating the Galileo device into her training, a truly revolutionary approach to muscular training, a vibration training device that generates muscle contractions from the outside in, and is now a master trainer in incorporating the Galileo into her movement therapy. As a local artist, Domini Anne and Hanif married fashion and music in her productions Awaken and Dusk, partnered with Community Palette in the Timeless Fashion Show, has been a part of the Big Sur fashion shows, and most recently with the virtual Pivot fashion show out of Santa Cruz, performing her iconic Little Black Dress number. She is an artist, a mom, an entrepreneur, and one of our donors. So welcome again, Dominique. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you too.
Yes. So we want to start how we've been starting since April is to just not only tell us a little bit about your art, but also, what have you been doing since we've been in shelter in place, off and on throughout this year?
It was really crazy for me because the gyrotonic system has previously not really allowed us to do much teaching online. It was something that its inventor, Julia Horvath, felt was best conducted on a person-to-person basis. And when shelter in place happened, it pushed them to allow us to teach via video, which is something I had been wanting to do and called to do for so long. So literally the day that shelter in place happened in Carmel, where I live, we were also allowed to teach online, and my world completely opened up. So I went for everything I'd always wanted to do and just opened up for the first couple of weeks a free studio where I taught 9 classes a week in everything that I wanted to share.
Wow.
Nothing else to do. And so people were at home. And what I found was also when people were at home without stimulus, they were much more aware of their bodies and how they were feeling. So I think that self-care became more of a priority, at least for my demographic. The studio has changed, the virtual studio has changed a lot since then. I'm teaching a lot less classes. I'm doing a lot of in-person private training with students all over the world. And I've created this video archive where all of my previously taught classes are available for rental. So there's breath work that you don't need any props. There's a whole series called Mad Props, which was just about how can you use home items to help your training. It just goes on and on and on.
So that's great. It's good to hear that this just, like you said, opened up doors for you, something you've been wanting to do. And I understand, in different modalities, sometimes, the master teachers will say, you can't teach that online. It has to be, in person. So this, having that opportunity, I mean, I'm witnessing it because I've gone to your website and I see what you're offering, and it is truly amazing. And I'm glad that more people now are going to be able to tap into that. And like you said, you still have the in-person, but it's good to know that there's the online videos available to everyone now. Um, and so besides, what's happening, on the movement level, I know that you have been working on you've called, your pandemic fashion. So please share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was interesting because the first 3 months of shelter in place, I also didn't sew. I became an editor and producer of my own workout videos, which was never a part of my career path I thought was going to happen. And then by the time July rolled around, I was finally ready to make some masks. It's interesting because generally fashion has particular aesthetics that change over the years. You know, in the 50s, we had these waists and we had these hips and we had a certain figure. That changed a lot in the 60s. It changed again in the 70s, the 80s. You could, if I'm, when I'm saying these eras, you can kind of imagine how the waistlines went up and down and our ideal of what we were looking for changed. But it's always been pretty gradual. And then all of a sudden, it's like our waistline moved up to our face. We had no warning whatsoever. Anybody who went for bold lips had to switch to eyeshadow right away. It changed everything for us. So I wanted to, I guess, participate in that dialogue because as a designer, that kind of stuff is always interesting. So I started workshopping mask patterns also because I have very sensitive ears, and every time I had elastics behind my ears, I felt like it was getting cauliflower ear. So I went ahead and designed a different pattern that had elastics that went behind the neck. It's also got those handy adjusters. And that way it just stays on and my ears aren't bothered.
Right. And you're able to adjust it in the back.
Yeah, and you can hide it behind your hair, you know, if you have long hair. Which is
Mm-hmm.
good because all elastics are going to stretch out eventually. It's the nature of nylon. Yes, and then one of my trainer colleagues asked me if I would make her a mask with silk lining because she had very sensitive skin, which played right into my secondhand clothing fetish. And there is amazing scarf game on this peninsula. I probably should have told everybody that on the internet. So I started picking up all of these scarves and then using them to line the inside of the masks, which was an improvement. Then I put in nose bridges so that they wouldn't clog up your glasses. I finally feel like I really got the ultimate mask pattern. Then I made about 300 of them and got bored. So decided to do something different and came up with a scarf mask pattern. I'm going to grab one and just show you.
Yes, grab one.
These are all of my stock closets, by the way. They're essentially filled with my fashion show history.
I love that you have this background. And we're actually, while you're grabbing that, we're just going to briefly run through a slideshow to show the audience some images, not only of from your fashion shows, which we'll get into a little later, but also some of the, your face masks and just more
That sounds perfect.
time. So right now we're showing some of your, your the images of your fashion creations.
That's great. And I'm back with the mask now too.
Okay, great. So
Oh
we're
yeah,
just
can I talk about the face panties thing for a second? You can keep
sure,
story.
please do.
So I read this viral post where someone was talking about how useless masks were because she would grab her dirty one from her car and then put it on and walk into a restaurant. There'd be this imaginary force field around her. And she kept on talking about how unhygienic it was. And all I could think of was like, honey, do you not realize that these things are utilitarian? You need to wash them, you need to replace them. They're here to collect your fluids, and all of a sudden I just went, we're talking about face panties. And that was, I haven't gotten past that still. It's really the same kind of analogy. They're functional, you need them, and you need multiple styles depending on the occasion and what you're wearing. So you may as well just get yourself a whole drawer if you're going to turn this into your fashion statement.
It's so true. I think it was like the second or third month of wearing masks that I realized like I need way more masks. Like, and so now I have a full collection and we have hooks in the closet. We can hang them up. Everybody has their own section and it's so true. You need to wash them. You need multiple of them. So,
Yeah.
it is kind of like a face panty. Never thought of that phrase before, but that's why we have you.
Well, now you will never forget it.
Yeah, you
It
won't
also
forget
is
it.
a pretty good image when someone's nose is hanging out and you're like, oh my God, your fly's undone.
So true. I almost told somebody that recently at a store. So please show us, demonstrate this new mask concept that you
This is my
created.
favorite review thing because you don't always just want to have the same look or the same line. You know, we don't wear jeans out to an elegant event. So I started taking the scarves that I really liked and adding an internal filter that's either lycra or muslin. I have two different styles there. I'm just going to show you this one. So this is cotton, which is it's proven to be one of the best filtration devices if you're going to be using fabric. And then I've got a silk scarf, so we have 2 layers of silk as well. That's 3 layers of fabric. And then it's got these elastic adjusters, so I can put this over my ears and mold the nose bridge and then just arrange it over my neck for a different look and a different hemline, so to speak. Plus, it's pretty functional. You can keep your neck warm. I did a sarong one. It doubles as a towel.
I was just going to mention that because I know you have one on your that you posted on your Instagram feed, and it's of a heavier fabric, and it's freezing now. So, might as well be functional all the way through, right? From being able to safeguard yourself to keeping your neck warm. So I think it's brilliant, and I love that those are available, and we will, at the very end, we'll be posting all of your links and everything and ways for people to get in touch with you, for more information. And so now we're going to pivot literally into talking about a little bit about the Pivot fashion show, the Art of Fashion show. If you want to talk about the mannequin in the background, anything you want to share about that?
Yeah. This mannequin is wearing one of my favorite dresses that came from the Awaken fashion show, which happened in 2018. And it was around the same time as Kavanaugh was having the hearings to come into the Supreme Court. That triggered a lot for me because I'm all about feminine sexual empowerment. I feel like we should have the right to put ourselves in any role that we want. And it's one thing when you're being sexualized, when someone's doing it to you. I don't feel like that's okay. There's no consent there. But we should be allowed to make ourselves as sexy as we want, or as not. We should have permission to basically posture ourselves however we want, and also be in whatever kind of style and character. So I came up with this whole collection called the Handmaid's Tale collection for obvious reasons. They all had really severe puritanical lines, but also had stark and obvious elements of feminine sexuality. So for example, this one, let's see if I can, maybe I'll just move you over. That's easier than moving the mannequin.
Yeah, move us over.
Okay. Just unplug the power cord. You are all on a box on a stool right now.
I love this.
Yeah, it's making this.
I love all the interaction.
It's much more fun when we start to
Feel like I'm in your studio space.
Yeah, so these are all these cashmere sweaters. They know me by name at the Goodwill on Broadway. I was going in there once or twice a week and pretty much buying up all of their cashmere sweaters. And then I would slice them up and turn them into these very organic dresses. So this one has a hood. It also has elements of the Henry Miller Library left on it. Last and this crazy thigh slit that goes just all the way. There was another one that had a back that was made completely out of lace. There were 12 total. That was also the first fashion show that we had Rose Celery participate in. She's an amazing designer from Santa Cruz. She's really more of a textile artist. My favorite piece of hers is one that's done entirely out of shattered glass. So she broke all these glasses, and then she put it back together with tweezers into this 1950s style dress. Clearly unwearable, but it was a statement about some changes that were going on in her life. And it's so moving, and you can just imagine how it would feel to be inside of that. Rose Celery does a fashion show in Santa Cruz every year that also features local designers and wearable art. This year, like all of us performers and artists, we had this huge element of ourselves just ripped away. We all I gotta say the whole world did, but especially I think as performers, we rely on a dialogue with crowds and people and being seen and expressing this kind of stuff. And to have no way of doing that felt like we had been muted. So Rose decided to put together a film. It's a 2-hour film. Every single designer is given a good 5 minutes to be interviewed about what they put in there. Then they had a photo shoot, and they also had a video. So it's an incredible gift to all designers to have that kind of documentation for them. Mm-hmm. Also for people who love fashion, to be able to get to know it again and see what we've been up to as we've been in our homes. So Rose had come to the Big Sur Fashion Show, which I had the honor of being the very closing act of the opening set. And I did this piece called Little Black Dress. Mm-hmm. It's about 2 minutes and 14 seconds, and it is also related to the Kavanaugh hearings and about my ability to sexualize myself, and that I need to have that right. It shouldn't be questioned. So I cut myself out of this long gown that started with a turtleneck, and it went all the way down to the floor. And then the first cut was at the back. The second one was down the front. Mm-hmm. And it went down the thigh. And then I took off one side, the other, and finally slid it out. And wound up in my color flesh color bodysuit that had also been hand painted with flames by a trainer and good friend of mine, Oriel, who's also an incredible artist. So Rose asked me to do that piece for Pivot, and I'm so glad to be part of that film.
That's awesome. And like you said, performance art and artists, so many of them were feeling, that they were being muted because everything was just being closed down. And so that is the beauty of creatives, that we always find a way. There's always a way around. We're like the best troubleshooters. We can always find, we will not be silenced. And that video, that's another link that we'll be making available for everyone to go on and to view through Vimeo, correct?
Yeah, I think it's like $10 to rent for 24 hours. I took the full 24 hours to go through those 2 hours and really experience the fashion show element of it. It's well worth the money.
That's great.
I had another thought I just wanted to quickly point on to. In so many shows in the past, my biggest regret after putting them on was that I hadn't done effective documentation. And after you do an event, it vaporizes. Unless you documented it, it's gone. And you're somewhat reliant on what the photographer's captured, or if you've paid a videographer and then you have to edit it, but it's so worth it to do it. And I would hope that what we've gone through this year and how we've all gone onto screens would allow us to much more easily create that kind of endless documentation. That's always available.
Yeah, it's crucial. And you're right. It is something that tends to be either only at the event and sometimes forgotten completely until you're looking to maybe market it or just make people aware. And then you realize you never took any images. You don't have anything. So I agree. We have to document everything as much as possible.
It's the body of work.
So just speaking about, we started the conversation just talking about your gyrotonic practice. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about your videos, I love that you have some really fun, catchy titles. I went through them again, and I think I'm encouraging the audience to go onto your website and take a look at the titles. And I know we are at the end, we'll have a discount offer code for participants to go on and to view a video for free, one video for free. And that's your gift to us, which is amazing. So share a little bit more about your online videos.
Yeah, well, considering they were replacing my entire creative side, which is very different and much less organized than my trainer side, I think that just elements of myself began to come out. And I'm one of those people who just doesn't exist without an earworm. There's always something going through my head. And it's been a habit of mine for a long time to just start randomly quoting songs to people in a very deadpan voice until they figure out that that's happening. So somewhere along the line, I began to title all my videos after like R&B songs or bad puns. Some of my favorites, there was one that I did with the Galileo and a yoga block. And it was all about leveraging closed chain connections. So I had the Galileo, which is, by the way, this is this device here. This is the one that fires muscle contractions from the outside in, which is incredible because someone with a spinal cord injury who can't actually fire their own muscles can get on this plate and their muscles will be fired. It's a chain, the neuromuscular action, right? It's the same loop that your brain sends to your hand to move in space. I'm going to go pick up a pencil as the loop that gives me information about that pencil. That's the information that comes back. You can trigger it at any point. So what this plate does is it works with the muscle stretch reflex, which, sorry, I'm trying not to speak quickly because when I get excited, I just go off. When a muscle is rapidly stretched, it is driven to contract. And this is a plate that oscillates side to side. So it mimics the human gait pattern. And that causes vibrations to go up through the body. So I'll just pull this. Actually, you'll probably be able to see it really nicely here. You can even see the contractions come from my thighs.
Oh,
so
wow.
I can see that, but this is literally making my muscles contract. And depending on the positions I take, I can access whole muscular chains in my body. So now I feel it in my hand. And if I added weight or a TheraBand or maybe a yoga block, I would feel it more because the contractions travel most along an engaged muscle chain or a straight line. So back to the title, I did the whole thing pushing the brick against the wall for nothing but closed chain. And I called it Another Brick and the Wall. My favorite one of all of the titles, what came from Gyrotonic. I was teaching a whole hamstring series. I'll tend to pick a theme and kind of go through the month without exploring different aspects.
Right.
So I was working on hamstring flexibility, and I had one, the first one, which was all kind of forward movements. And I called that one the low bend theory, which if you don't know the Tribe Called Quest album, you should probably just find it. Actually, the low end theory is the Tribe Called Quest album. It's my low bend theory. Then afterwards, I was reviewing class and thinking, yeah, but there's also this way of stretching your hamstrings to the side. So the next class I developed was all about the open leg stretching. And I called that one Blazing Straddles.
I love it.
Yeah, other good ones are this is spinal map.
And so what has the feedback been? I know you've been able to reach people across the world. So share, a little bit about who you've been connecting with and where, and the feedback, of course.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I wake up in the morning and I see that people all over the world have rented my videos. And knowing that I've been with people and helped them to learn something while I was sleeping, it's an incomparable feeling. I have a few clients actually based in France. It's interesting how different locales will kind of be drawn to you. Mainly they're gyrotonic instructors or other colleagues. I do have people though who just come to me for breathing. Psychologists and psychiatrists also seem to make up a large demographic, and they're much more interested in the breathing stuff that I've been developing since I carried my second child, Ezekiel Stardust. The feedback, it's overwhelmingly positive. I do also send out a mailing list every couple of weeks that also is based on titles usually. That's where This Is Spinal Map came from. And then the last one that I sent out was called Groove is in the Heart, because we're just about to go back inside. And
I always need that song.
that song.
The best.
Yeah, so what's the best is when I find a title that really hits, getting these personal emails from people who are on the list saying that made their day or they had the song in their head all day, and they'll often just voluntarily check back in with me. So it feels like it's a nice kind of humorous way to stay in contact and keep a sense of bubbliness, liveliness.
That's great. And just talking about, feedback and what you're taking in. I also just want to note that you are also one of our sustaining donors, and I would love for you to speak a little bit about, your ideas and theories around giving back to the creative community and to the art, to our community here in Monterey County.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate, I would say blessed, to have the opportunity to have grown my business during this time. Not everyone has been so fortunate. So I just made a point right from the start to donate a minimum of 10% of my earnings. Oftentimes it's been more, to various organizations that I thought were doing good or needed help or just needed a little signal of, hey, that someone out here loves you and thinks that you're doing well. There are a few that I donate to on a monthly basis, and the Monterey Council for the Arts is one of them, because your work is so important, and especially giving artists the opportunity to teach their craft, share what they love to bright young minds. And what you're providing for all of the kids around the peninsula is phenomenal. I just wish I could do more.
No, well, we appreciate you, and I'm glad that you understand and see the importance of, not only supporting the teachers, but also supporting the children and the students across the county. It's super important, and we just really appreciate you so much. So thank you for that.
It's very mutual.
And we're wrapping up right now. I could speak to you probably for about 20 more minutes, and then I'll probably be dancing around in the background too. Um, but I want to know what's next for you. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, there's some amazing stuff in the works. The creative studio that I share with my creative partner, Hanif Wonder, is based out of Sand City, where I also lived for almost a decade. If you haven't gone there recently, you need to. Just take a walk and experience the world-class art that is up all over that tiny little area of Seaside. I believe it was Greg Hawthorne's idea originally. He's part of the arts committee and also a very talented artist, icon, I would say, on the peninsula. So they did this project. Hanif was also part of that. And they're going to be doing a phase 2. I don't want to talk too much about that. I don't want to let any cats out of the bag there. But it will include a lot more local artists as well. And we've been talking about doing a fashion film festival during that opening weekend. They've created this art park. It's part of a whole block. There's sidewalks on 3 sides, I believe. It's also got beautiful graffiti art all along the wall. Some murals, I think. Anyhow, again, I get excited when I start talking about everything. And they've got a building inside of it. But mainly it's this big parking lot. How perfect for socially distanced movie viewings. So in the pandemic, Hanif and I also made sure that we filmed our last production, Dusk. So we have that as a movie. And then there's a number of Big Sur fashion show movies. So I'm hoping that we could show 3 different fashion films, perhaps when we can gather again.
Right.
It can be outside, so there's a certain level of safety. And we also could possibly have the opportunity to put some models up on pedestals, maybe do some projection mapping on them, give a few different designers the chance to have their work shown. Because if we're having a walking art festival, which is again so pandemic friendly, and it's pandemic, we also have all of that time where we can space out shows within the art park.
No, it's so true. It's so true, and that's perfect. And that's going to be for 2021. And we don't have a date on that yet, correct? Just it's in the works.
We're hoping in the spring.
In the spring.
Let's see what happens, when it's safe.
That's great. And so I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to share with us, but like I've been mentioning throughout, we will be posting all of your links. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about your breath work. If that's an offering that's online, correct? Or it can be a private class with you.
It's an offering that's online. You can also train with me privately by contacting me, of course. I like the videos because they're cheap and you can do them whenever you want. The one thing I want to say about breath is that it can be such a source of vitality, and it's also a direct way of accessing your emotional state through your physical body, because it moves through both conscious and unconscious processes. So our emotions are more unconscious, our physicality is more conscious. You have the opportunity to work on your breath every moment. You are not dead. It doesn't have to be special. There's no one breath that's going to make you immortal. Simply by paying attention to it, and wherever you are within your breath cycle of inhalation, pause, exhalation, there's so much to be gained by tapping in.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Maybe
thank
we
you
have
so much. And please share where we can find you online.
You can find me on my website, which is my curated persona at dominianne.com. It's Anne with an E. You can find me on Facebook. It's my personal profile, so I'm going to share political views. It's probably the only place you may see my children online. You can also find my two business profiles on Instagram. Domini Anne is the movement, and Domini Anne creates the fashion.
That's awesome. And I know you do have a discount code for us. We will post that in our Facebook feed. And thank you so much. I've been really looking forward to this conversation for months now. And so I'm happy that we had the opportunity to share more about what you've been up to with the full community. And thank you again.
Thank you too. It was such a pleasure.
Have a good afternoon, everybody. And so we're wrapping up for the end of the year, December, Artist Spotlight, and we will see everyone again in January 2021. Thank you so much.